Siri died, Google AI replaced it. Apple just handed the brain of Siri to Google, and I need you to understand what actually this means, right? The most valuable company on earth, $3.5 trillion. A company that has built everything in-house for decades. Their own chips, their own operating system, their own screens, their own everything. That company just called Google and said, we can't build AI smart enough, we need yours. And they're paying Google $1 billion a year to actually make it happen. Let me say that again. Apple is paying Google, its biggest competitor, $1 billion every single year because Siri is so bad, so broken, so far behind, they literally could not fix it themselves after 14 years, after hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue, after promising us over and over that Siri was about to get better. They gave up. And if you think this is just a tech story, just some corporate deal between two big companies, I need you to pay closer attention because what just happened tells you everything about where AI is going, who's winning, who's losing, and more importantly, what it means for you and your career and your business. This is the biggest shift in AI since ChatGPT launched, and almost nobody is talking about it the right way. So let me break this down. Let's start with what actually happened. On January the 12th, 2026, Apple and Google put out a joint statement. Very quiet, very corporate, almost no details, just a few sentences saying that Apple would be using Google's Gemini technology to power Apple Intelligence features, including the next generation of Siri. That is like Coca-Cola announcing it's going to start using Pepsi's recipe. That's how big this is. The deal works like this. Google built a custom AI model just for Apple, 1.2 trillion parameters. To put that in plain English, that's 8 times bigger than the AI brain Apple was using before. And it's 400 times bigger than the little AI model that runs on your actual iPhone. This thing is massive. And Apple is not just using it for one thing. They're using it for the part of Siri that thinks, the part that plans, the part that takes your question, figures out what you actually need, pulls together information from your email, your messages, your calendar, and gives you a real answer. The hard part, the part that Apple couldn't crack. Google cracked it. Apple couldn't, so Apple is renting Google's brain. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. You will never see Google's name mentioned anywhere. When you talk to Siri on your iPhone later this year, it will say Siri. It will still look like Apple. It will still feel like Apple. But underneath, the thing that's actually thinking, the thing that's actually smart, that is Google. Apple is white labeling Google's AI. Think of it like a store brand cereal. You're buying the box that says Apple on it, but inside it's Google's ingredients. And the reason this happened, the reason the most valuable company in the world had to go to its biggest rival hand in hand, that story is one of the most incredible failures in modern tech history. Let me take you back. Siri launched on October the 4th, 2011, one day before Steve Jobs passed away. And at the time, it felt like magic. You could talk to your phone and it would talk back. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. Apple was years ahead of everyone. And then something happened. Nothing. Literally nothing happened. For over a decade, the co-founders of Siri, the people who actually built it, they left Apple within 2 years. Internal politics, turf wars, nobody could agree on what Siri should become. The team got passed around like a hot potato. Different managers, different visions, different priorities. Every year, Apple would get up on stage and promise Siri was getting smarter, and every year Siri would still struggle to set a timer properly. And I am not exaggerating. At one point, removing the word hey from Hey Siri took Apple engineers more than 2 years. 2 years to remove one word. That's how broken the internal culture around this product was. Meanwhile, the rest of the world was sprinting. Amazon launched Alexa in 2014, Google launched Google AI Assistant in 2016, and whilst Apple was spending 2 years removing the word hey, these companies were building AI systems that could actually do things, real things, useful things. Then November 2022 happened. ChatGPT launched and the world changed overnight. Suddenly everybody understood what AI could do. Suddenly everybody was talking to computers and getting real answers. And Apple's response, Apple's head of AI, a guy named John Gianandrea, who they actually hired from Google in 2018, reportedly told people that generative AI was overhyped. The consumers didn't trust AI agents, so this was a fad. That's like being the CEO of Blockbuster in 2008, and saying Netflix is overhyped. That's like being the head of Kodak and saying digital cameras are a fad. History is not kind to people who understand and underestimate technology shifts, and Apple's AI chief was sitting there saying this was not a big deal. So when Apple finally showed up with the answer in June 2024 and their big developer conference, they put on this incredible demo. They showed Siri pulling information from your emails and your messages at the same time. They showed Siri understanding what was on your screen in action. They showed you asking, when does my mum's flight land? And Siri going through your messages, finding the flight details, checking the airline status, and giving you the answer. It was amazing. And none of it worked. I mean, it worked on stage, it worked in the demo, but when Apple's own engineers tried to use these features in real testing, they fell apart. Software engineer Craig Federighi found that the features did not work properly in his own testing. Engineers raced to fix the bugs. They could not do it. Some teams inside Apple believe the whole might need to be scrapped and rebuilt from scratch. What did actually shipped was worse than nothing, because what shipped was broken in a way that was publicly embarrassing. Apple Intelligence started summarizing news notifications for people. Great idea in theory, except that AI was making things up. It generated a fake headline saying the Prime Minister of Israel had been arrested. It made up a headline claiming all sorts of crazy stuff. Fabricated a headline saying tennis legend Rafael Nadal had come out. It said a darts player had won a championship before the final even played out, right? The BBC filed formal complaints. Reporters Without Borders called it a danger to the public's right to reliable information. Apple had to completely disable news notification summaries for 6 months. The company that prides itself on premium, polished, trustworthy products was generating fake news and publishing it direct to people's lock screens. And it gets worse. Apple got hit with class action lawsuits. People were suing them for false advertising. They had promised all these incredible AI features, charged premium prices for new iPhones that were supposed to run these features, and then the features either did not work or did not exist. By March 2025, Siri's own team lead, Robbie Walker, stood up in all hands meeting and told his staff the delays were, and I quote, ugly and embarrassing. When your own team leader is calling your product ugly and embarrassing in front of everything, you know things are pretty bad. Tim Cook had seen enough. He pulled Siri development away from Gianandrea and gave it to Mike Rockwell, the guy who built Apple's Vision Pro headset. Rockwell came in and replaced most of the existing Siri leadership with his own people. By December 2025, Gianandrea's retirement was announced, and his replacement, a guy named Amar Subramanya, I think that's pronounced, who had spent 16 years at Google as head of engineering for Google's Gemini assistant. Read that again. Apple replaced their AI chief with a Google AI guy, and then partnered with Google for their AI. The writing was on the wall. Now, let me tell you about the business side of this deal, because the numbers are wild. Apple looked at 3 options before choosing Google. They talked to Anthropic, the company behind Claude. Anthropic actually scored slightly higher in Apple's internal tests. They did not want to become too dependent on Apple. That's the only thing. But Anthropic wanted $1.5 billion a year, and Apple said that was too expensive. They talked to OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, but OpenAI turned them down. OpenAI is building its own hardware with Jony Ive, Apple's former design chief, and they didn't want to become too dependent on Apple anyway, so they want to really compete with Apple. So Google won, partly because Gemini was genuinely good, but also because of the maths. Google already pays Apple over $20 billion a year to be the default search engine on iPhones. So when Apple says, hey, we need your AI and we'll pay you $1 billion a year for it, Google can basically say, sure, we'll just take it out of the $20 billion we're already sending you. It's like paying with stock credit. As one investor put it, Apple may not have wanted to pay Anthropic $1.5 billion a year, but $1 billion a year to a partner that's already paying you $20 billion, well, that can just be an in-kind deal. Now, here's where I need to talk about something that matters to everyone listening to this. And I mean everyone, not just tech people, not just AI people, everyone. If you're sitting there thinking, okay, Apple made a deal with Google, who cares? What does that have to do with me? Let me explain. What just happened is not about Siri. What just happened is proof that AI has become so important, so essential, so powerful, that even the biggest, richest, most capable company on the planet can't do it alone. Apple has more cash than most countries. They have some of the best engineers in the world. They've been working on this for years, and they still could not build AI good enough to compete. That tells you something about the speed of this technology. It tells you something about how fast the ground is shifting. If Apple, with all its resources, can't keep up, what does that say about your company? What does that say about your industry? And what does that say about your career? I keep saying this, and I'll keep saying it until everybody gets it. AI is not coming, AI is here. It's reshaping everything. And the gap between people who understand AI and the people who do not is getting wider every single day. That's exactly why we built the AI Profit Boardroom, because most people are hearing about these deals, hearing about these billion-dollar partnerships, hearing about AI changing everything, and they have no idea what to actually do about it. They do not know where to start. They do not know which tools to use. They don't know how to turn AI from a headline into actual profit in their business. The AI Profit Boardroom is where I show you exactly how to do that, step by step, tool by tool, strategy by strategy. Whether you're a business owner, a freelancer, a content creator, or someone working 9 to 5 who wants to future-proof their career, because of what Apple has just admitted, you can't ignore AI. You can't build slow and hope to catch up. And that's true for big companies, and it's true for individuals too. So link is in the description, or just go to the AI Profit Boardroom and check it out. Now, let me get back to the deal, because there's so much more to unpack here. Let us talk about privacy, because this is the part that should make every iPhone user sit up and pay attention. Apple has built its entire brand around privacy. What happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone. That is literally their advertising slogan. They run billboards about it. They run Super Bowl commercials about it. Privacy is not just a feature for Apple, it's the core of their identity. So how do you square that with handling your Siri requests to Google? This is the company that makes money from advertising, right? This is the company that knows what you search, what you watch, where you go, what you buy, that Google. Apple says they have safeguards. They say Siri requests will be anonymized. They say personal identifiers will be stripped out. They say Google is contractually forbidden from using Apple data to train its models. They say data is processed in memory only, never stored permanently. And Apple says it will all run on their own private cloud compute servers where even Apple itself cannot see your data. But here's the problem. Google told a different story. On Alphabet's earnings call, CEO Sundar Pichai described Google as Apple's preferred cloud provider. Google's business chief used the same language. Bloomberg reporter Mark Gurman immediately called it out. He said Google says Apple will be using Google Cloud as part of the Gemini deal. That does not square at all with Apple's claims about using its own servers. So who's telling the truth here? Apple says it's running on Apple servers. Google says Apple's using Google's cloud. Both companies are publicly traded. Both CEOs said these things on earnings calls where lying is obviously unacceptable. And somebody is being very creative with their language. The most likely answer is that there are multiple tiers. Simple stuff runs on Apple servers. Complex stuff, the really powerful AI reasoning, probably runs on Google's infrastructure, which means your data, at least some of it at least sometimes, and that's going to Google servers. And look, I'm not saying the sky's falling. I am saying that, Google may be sending some data from Apple, but I'm not saying that Apple is selling your data. But I am saying that the company that built its brand on privacy just made a deal that creates real questions about privacy. And those questions do not have clear answers yet. Now, let us talk about the winners and the losers, because this deal reshuffled the entire AI landscape. Winner number one is Google, and it's not even close. Google now powers AI on both major mobile platforms. They power Android through Samsung, and they now power iOS through Apple. Android and iPhone together represent 99% of the smartphone market. Google's AI is now the brain inside nearly every phone on the planet. That's an insane amount of power. On top of all of that, Google is getting paid $1 billion a year for the privilege. Alphabet stock hit an all-time high of $301.86 on the day the deal was announced. Google briefly crossed $4 trillion in market cap for the first time ever, becoming only the fourth company in history to reach that milestone. And for the first time since 2019, Google's market cap past Apple's. Winner number two is Samsung. Samsung has been way more aggressive on AI than Apple. Whilst Apple was fumbling with Siri delays and fake news headlines, Samsung launched the Galaxy S26 with what they call the world's first agentic AI phone. Samsung is running multiple AI systems at the same time. Google, Gemini, Perplexity, and their own Bixby. They let users pick which AI they want to use. CNBC reported that Samsung has become the single most important distribution channel for Google's consumer AI, and one that Apple, despite its own $1 billion Gemini deal, cannot yet match. And Samsung is already doing what Apple is promising to do later this year. Samsung is shipping, Apple is still testing. Now, winner number three, honestly, is anyone who understands AI and is building with it right now. Because here's the thing, if the biggest company in the world just admitted they're behind on AI, imagine how behind most businesses are. Most businesses are still at the we should probably look into AI stage. Meanwhile, the entire industry just shifted beneath their feet. Now, let's talk about losers. Loser number one is OpenAI. This is the one that surprises people. OpenAI had a deal with Apple. ChatGPT was integrated into Siri as an opt-in option for complex queries, but now Gemini becomes the default intelligence layer. ChatGPT gets pushed to the side, and one analyst predicted the ChatGPT integration would die on the vine. ChatGPT's US mobile market share reportedly dropped from 69% to 45%, and that's a massive decline. And remember, OpenAI turned down the opportunity for a deeper partnership with Apple. They chose to build their own hardware with Jony Ive instead, and that might turn out to be brilliant, or it might turn out to be the biggest strategic mistake in our history. We'll see. Loser number two, Apple. I know they made the deal, so in one sense they're a winner. They get better AI for their phones. But in another very real sense, this is humiliation. The company that pioneered the smartphone, the company that launched the AI assistant category, just admitted it can't compete. Bloomberg ran a piece titled Apple Intelligence Built Atop Google. Gemini seems like admitting defeat. Fortune warned that Apple's continuing need to rely on partners is a worrisome sign for a champion of vertical integration. And here's a kicker. Elon Musk, who runs his own AI company called xAI, posted that this seems like an unreasonable concentration of power for Google, given that they also have Android and Chrome. When Elon Musk is calling out competition concerns, you know the deal is big. Loser number 3 is anyone ignoring AI. I'm saying this and I'll say it again. If Apple, a $3.5 trillion company with unlimited resources, cannot afford to be behind on AI, what makes you think you can? What makes you think your business can? What makes you think your career can survive ignoring this? The companies that are winning right now are the ones that move fast. Look at Cursor, the AI coding tool. $300 million in revenue, 20 employees. Midjourney, the AI image generator, 200 million in revenue, 40 employees. And Lovable, the AI app builder, 200 million in revenue with just 15 employees. These are not giant corporations with thousands of workers. These are tiny teams using AI to generate the kind of revenue that used to require entire divisions of people. That is the world we live in now. And if you're not learning how to use these tools, if you're not figuring out how AI fits into your work, you are actively falling behind. Now, let me talk about what happens next, because Apple is not just going to sit there paying Google $1 billion a year forever. They have a plan, and it's the same plan they have used before. Apple has done the exact same thing multiple times. They used Google Maps from 2007 to 2012. Then they launched Apple Maps. They used Intel chips from 2006 to 2020. Then they launched Apple Silicon. They used Samsung displays and Qualcomm modems while secretly developing their own versions. The playbook is always the same. Outsource to a partner, learn, build your own version, then cut the partner loose. Apple is already working on their own 1 trillion parameter AI model, reportedly codenamed Ferret 3. They are designing dedicated AI server chips, codenamed Baltra, targeted for mass production in late 2026. They announced a $500 billion 4-year investment plan for US data centers and AI infrastructure. Analyst Ming-Chi Kuo projects 2027 as the year Apple's custom infrastructure should be operational enough to start reducing their dependence on Google. But here's why the skeptics have a point. Every time Apple did this before, they were solving engineering problems, making a better chip, making a better map, making a better screen. Those are hard but predictable problems. You throw money and talent at them and eventually you get results. AI is different. AI is not engineering as a problem, it's a research problem. It requires massive training data that Apple doesn't have, the same way Google does. It requires research breakthroughs that you just can't buy. And it requires top-tier AI talent, which Apple has been losing. They reportedly lost 12 to 15 key AI researchers to Meta, OpenAI, and Anthropic in 2025 alone. As one commenter put it, nothing is more permanent than a temporary solution. John Gruber, one of the most respected Apple commentators in the world, offered what I think is the most balanced take. He called $1 billion a year an amazing deal for Apple, given that Google invested over $100 billion developing those AI capabilities. He said what Apple needs is a version of Apple Intelligence that's not stupid, is reliable and dependable, and that users can trust to be private. And the Gemini deal, as imperfect as it may be, is the fastest path to growth. I think Gruber is right. That's a pragmatic move. It's a smart play in the short term, but the long term is where things get uncertain. Now, let me bring this back to you because there are real lessons for everyone listening, no matter what you do for a living. And lesson number 1, speed matters more than perfection. Apple tried to be perfect. They tried to build everything in-house. They tried to control every piece, and they fell so far behind that they had to go to their biggest competitor for help. Meanwhile, companies that move fast, even if their first versions were not that perfect, they're now dominating, right? Same with Google. Google's AI a couple of years ago was terrible. Now it's amazing. So this is true for your career too. The people who started learning AI tools 6 months ago, even if they started messy, even if their first attempts were rough, they are miles ahead of the people who are still waiting for the perfect moment to start. And there's no perfect moment here. The best time to start was 6 months ago. The second best time is right now. Lesson number 2, nobody is too big to fall behind. If Apple can fall behind on AI, anyone can. Your company can, your industry can, you can. This is not about being pessimistic. This is about being realistic. The technology is moving so fast that standing still is the same as falling behind. And lesson number 3, the infrastructure layer is where the real power is. Google is not the most famous AI company in the world. That's probably OpenAI. Google is not the most talked about AI company. But Google just became the invisible intelligence layer powering nearly every smartphone on Earth. They are the plumbing, and in technology, the plumbing always wins. Think about that for your own business. Think about what the infrastructure layer looks like in your industry. Think about who's building the tools that everyone else is depending on. That's where the durable value is. Lesson number 4, privacy is going to be the battleground of the next decade. Every major AI deal from here on out is going to involve this tension. People want smarter AI, but smarter AI requires more data, and more data means more privacy risks. Apple is trying to thread this needle with the Gemini deal, and even they are struggling to give clear answers about where your data goes. As AI gets more powerful and more integrated into our lives, this tension is only going to get more intense. If you run a business, you should be thinking about now. Your customers care about their data. Your employees care about their data. Having a clear, honest stance on AI and privacy is going to be a competitive advantage. Lesson number 5, the AI race is consolidating fast. A year ago, it felt like there were a dozen companies that could win the AI race. OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, Meta, Mistral, xAI, and a bunch of others. Today, the picture is getting clearer. Google just locked up distribution on both major phone platforms. OpenAI is losing mobile market share. The window for new entrants is closing. For individuals, this means the tools are going to get better and more accessible. The AI in your pocket is about to get dramatically smarter. The question is whether you're going to use it or not. Let me tell you what's happening right now with the actual rollout, because Apple fans are probably listening to this thinking, great, when do I get a new Siri? The honest answer is not as fast as Apple wants. Apple was targeting spring 2026 for the first wave of Gemini-powered Siri features. They plan to unveil them in February, but by mid-February, Bloomberg reported that Apple had run into snags. Siri was sometimes failing to process queries properly. It was taking too long to respond. Engineers were told to shift internal testing to the next software version, iOS 26.5, meaning features could slip to May or even September. When the upgraded Siri does arrive, it should be able to do the things Apple showed off back in June 2024 that never materialized. Personal context understanding, where Siri pulls information from your email and messages together. Screen awareness, where Siri can see what's on your display and take action. Multi-step tasks, where Siri can do complex things across multiple apps. And a new feature described as a Perplexity-style AI answer engine built right into Siri, Safari, and Spotlight. And that last one is huge. Imagine being able to ask your phone a complex question and getting a detailed sourced answer right there. No opening a browser, no scrolling through search results, just the answer. But you'll need a relatively new phone. The advanced features will require an iPhone 15 Pro or newer. Morgan Stanley estimates 550 million iPhones out there can't run Apple Intelligence at all. That's 550 million potential upgrade sales, which, by the way, is exactly why Apple stock rallied after reporting record revenue of $143.8 billion last quarter. Wall Street sees the Gemini-powered Siri as the thing that will finally convince people to buy new iPhones. And let me wrap this up where I think this all leads. We're watching the AI landscape and the industry itself consolidate in real time. Google is becoming the dominant AI infrastructure provider across both mobile platforms. Apple is admitting it needs help and buying time where it builds its own capabilities. OpenAI is losing distribution and betting everything on hardware and direct consumer relationships. Samsung is moving fast and building the most flexible AI phone ecosystem. Amazon is rolling out Alexa Plus and betting on smart home AI. And Meta, Anthropic, and others are just fighting for what's left. The theme across all of this is speed. Speed of adoption, speed of development, speed of deployment. The companies that are moving fast are winning. The companies that are moving slow are falling behind. And the same is true for individuals. I guarantee you, a year from now, the Siri on your iPhone is going to be dramatically smarter than it is today. And that's going to change how you use your phone, how you search for information, how you manage your schedule, how you communicate, and how you work. But here's the thing. The AI in your phone getting smarter does not automatically make you smarter. It does not automatically make your business more profitable. It does not automatically make your career more secure. You have to learn how to use these tools. You have to understand what's possible. You have to build systems and workflows that will take advantage of this technology. That's a gap right now. The technology is there, the tools are there, but most people don't know how to use them. Most businesses don't know how to implement them. And that gap between what AI can do and what most people are doing with it, that's where all the opportunity is right now. I mean, look at what happened with Apple. They had the technology, they had the money, they had the people, but they did not have the vision, the speed, or the execution to make it work. And even the biggest company in the world, had to go outside for help. You don't have to make the same mistake. You don't have to wait until you're so far behind that you have to go to a competitor for help. You can start learning now, you can start building now, you can start using AI to grow your business, advance your career, and create opportunities that didn't exist a year ago. The people who understand that, the people who are acting on it, they are going to look back at this moment and realize this is when the world split into two groups, the people who figured out AI and the people who got left behind. And I know which group I'm in. The question is, which group are you in? If you're interested in learning this stuff, feel free to join the AI Profit Boarding, link in the comments description, or just go to the AIprofitboarding.com. It'll help you learn AI, save time, and learn how to implement it inside your business. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, bye-bye.